Howard Wilkinson came to Leeds United in October 1988. His brief, to get the club back into the big time. He'd done it before and had earned the reputation of being a promotion-winning manager.
Tell the goalkeeper! Get it down the middle! Try to get it down the middle!
The new manager quickly realised that some drastic surgery had to be applied to the squad he'd inherited. His moves in the transfer market were fired by the belief that the club could and should be an integral part of the country's elite. The engine room needed both silk and steel to not only provide the vital link between defence and attack, but also to turn past failure into future success. The manager's judgment of individuals is a vital ingredient, and Howard Wilkinson has a deeper insight of his players' strengths than most. He believes he's a lucky person, but in football matters leaves nothing to chance. His attention to minute detail is legendary. His assessment of ability, second to none.
Mervyn Day, well, he's played a lot of football. When you consider he started his career at something like 18 years old, playing in a cup final. If you're going to win anything, particularly a competition in the Football League where you're playing a lot of games, I mean the second division, 46 games, one of the things you've got to bear in mind is that hopefully your goalkeeper's not going to be doing a lot, but what he does do has got to be, it's got to be right, it's got to be quality. They get a lot of time to think. They probably do 100 times more work in the week than they actually do on the Saturday. The job on the Saturday really is to be on top performance on a few occasions, but they've got to get it right on those vital occasions, and that's where experience comes in.
Kevin Brock on this near side, finds Mickey Quinn, this is where he's dangerous, McGee, and that's a fingertip save from Mervyn Day.
Newcastle down here last season. Bradford away, very, very little to do, but now and again asked to make a save, and that save, both those games were 1-0 games, both those saves earned us 4 points.
A copybook goal this, Hazelwood's header against his old club, and Mervyn Day, a brilliant save.
I always say, and I haven't seen many teams to prove me wrong, if you haven't got a good goalkeeper, you haven't got a good team. Mel and I go back a long way. When I arrived at Sheffield Wednesday, there's this scrawny kid there who'd played a few second division games under Jack Charlton, some of them in midfield, I believe. And it was really during the course of my first close pre-season with him that I began to appreciate his qualities. And for a fullback, he was a little bit different insofar as I always likened him to a continental fullback, more to a German than an English player. He could do most things with the ball. He's got a good touch, can pass, control, take people on. Big asset coming forward from the back. Always good for 6, 8, 10 goals. I think one season he got more than 10 goals. Terrific on the run, can knock a good early crossing, a lot of strength, big strong boy, pace. As a fullback, there can't be many in Great Britain better in terms of their attacking contribution to the team. Not only that, he can be inspirational. I say inspirational insofar as he can produce the unexpected. He produced it at Sheffield United. He produced it down here one night against Oxford on a free kick. He can do things which can ignite a team. It can also ignite the crowd, and that's important, particularly at home. He shouldn't be here, Michael Whitlaw. He should have been at Sheffield Wednesday. And then, having said that, he shouldn't have been at Sheffield Wednesday because it happened. Michael Hennigan's really responsible for Whitlaw. I had a tip, and I sent Michael to watch this full-back playing in non-league. And Michael came back and said, well, I don't know about the right-back, he said, but I personally fancy the left-back. And Mickey's rise really here was meteoric. I mean, he came here, he had his first close season last season, made the first team quite early on, and until his injury, he looked like being a permanent fixture. Very, very quick, perhaps the quickest in the second division. He might be the quickest in the league. I remember down at Villa in the Simod Cup, he's the only person I've seen give Daly 3 or 4 yards and catch him, and he caught him well. I remember another time at Stoke, I think it was Chris Kamara knocked a ball by him and caught him slightly off balance, and within 15 yards Michael had made up 5 on him. It was like watching a racing car going to turbo. Very quick, good left foot, and a lot to learn. He's only been a professional for 18 months, so there's a lot of learning in him, and I think he's got a chance of going a long way in the game, because probably more important than anything, he's got a very, very sensible head on his shoulders, and he's his own man. He knows what he wants to do, and he's got a fair idea of how to get there, and he's not going to be put off. Jim had a terrible 2 years before he came here. Everyone knows about the horrendous injury. Everyone knows about the problems he had. When I took him, wasn't worried too much about medicals. I said, come down and let's do a training session and see what we see. And even at that point, running around out there with the kids, you could see why he was a Liverpool player. You could see why Liverpool are successful. Very, very composed in possession. Scrooge-like with the ball. Doesn't want to waste a pass. Wants every pass to be a good pass. Always expecting the ball. He loves joining in. He's never scared to have the ball. Sometimes he scares you when he has it, but you've got to accept that because of the things he can do and the things he wants to do, there will be times when he seems to be taking risks. Only he can work that out, and the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. Very, very good player, very useful, and can play in a team and not need to be seen to be playing well. Those players are invaluable in a team. The players who go in there, do a job, even when they're not having or being seen to have one of their better days. I came across Chrissy first when I was working with the under-21s, managing the under-21s, and I thought he was an outstanding young prospect. And he slipped through my hands at Sheffield Wednesday, literally, halfway through a medical. He and Peter have perhaps, for me, been the department of the season. He is a good pro. You don't know you've got them. He hates losing. Some people head the ball, but they see other things. When Chrissy goes for the ball, all he sees is the ball. He doesn't see injury. He defends as if it was his family were defending. Never a problem. Terrific ambassador for the game. Chris has done tremendously well on set pieces. Sometimes the penalty box must have been like being in the trenches in the First World War. You could get up there and you're so concerned with what's going on around you, you can't deal with the things you should be dealing with. Chris gets up there and all he sees is the ball. And the so-called better players, the so-called more skillful players, but all of it doesn't mean anything. If you don't want to go and get the ball, then you're not going to score. Over the season, he's popped up regularly with important ones. He's desperate to win. He perhaps has a desire to win football matches, which is as great as anyone here, if not greater. But he doesn't show it. You know, he's not forever letting the crowd know he's a winner. The team know he's a winner, his mates know he's a winner, and you've only got to watch him in their box and in our box for that to come out. You don't need it tattooed on your forehead. In fact, it's no good there. It's got to be tattooed in your heart. That's the place where we've got to have it. Who has developed this season beyond recognition, and there's still a lot to come from Peter. Peter again very, very quick. The pair of them can go through a game and afterwards managers will say to you, you know, I didn't realise he was that quick, or I didn't realise he was that good in the air, or I mean the times this season we've played teams where, you know, before the game we were talking about Bull and Much, we were talking about Gates and Gabbiadini. We were talking about Quinn, and they literally hardly got a kick.
It was also very important for Peter Haddock, with his recent history, to stay fit.
Yeah, I think fitness, you know, I think fitness has a lot to do sometimes with confidence. I also think fitness has a lot to do with fitness. And I think if you are physically well prepared and see the need to be physically well prepared and see your body as perhaps the most important tool you've got in your job, you will have less injuries. One injury won't lead to another. I think Peter, I mean, when I first came here, I didn't see Peter apart from, you know, he was riding that bike down in the physio's room and never getting anywhere for hour after hour after hour, just trying to get fit. He's much stronger now. He looks bigger now. He's got more presence, and he started to realise that opponents are the enemy, and that the enemy, you know, might try to hurt you one way or another, so you better be able to look after yourself. And he's done that, and very clean as well. Very, very clean and precise with most of the things he does.
John McClellan, what a match to come in for. He's not started a game since the first league match of the season at Newcastle, which Leeds lost 5-2. The Northern Ireland international has suffered badly with injuries this season, but in today for Haddock, out with a knee injury.
The Sheffield United game, you know, I would have thought everyone, when the team was announced, said, well, what's going to happen here? I had no doubts about it. I spoke to him the day before, and I had absolutely no doubts. My only worry was for him, because it was a hell of a game for him to come into, and it could have been the end of him. I mean, he went out against Sheffield United, against possibly the most talked about player in the second division up front, in Brian Deane, and when the whistle went, John's career was on the line, and it just shows you the strength of character that the boy's got. Not only did he come through the game, I mean, he walked through the game. He walked through the game and probably gave Brian Deane his worst time ever this season. Noel Blake basically couldn't put up with being part of a squad. All people are different. If you want to be part of a very successful team, you've got to accept you may not play every game. You might get injured. You know, how many players in the world are there who can actually say they will be picked every week? Maradona, perhaps. After that, you start to struggle. It was a situation whereby he had a vital role to play here, in or out of the team, but he felt he could only play it when he was in the team. Lynn Snodin, the mighty midget, he's been so unlucky this season. Fortunately, it looks as though now he's out of the wood, and we've missed him. We've missed him. Got a lot to offer, and I think the experiences he's had over the last 18 months will make him a better player, because I think he'll be a stronger person for it. So I think he's got a lot to offer next season. After I'd been here a while, and after I'd come to realise how much success meant to this football club, it became fairly apparent to me that one of the things that the players were going to have to deal with this season, bearing in mind the money we were going to spend and how it was going to be talked about, players were going to have personality. They were going to have a football personality. They were going to have to be able to deal with not only the football, and if possible, even better than that, they're going to have to be bigger than the football. Vinny, as we all know, has this larger-than-life personality, and I thought that would be an asset to this football club in the situations we're going to encounter in the second division, in addition to his footballing ability. And I think he's done that. You're still hearing about the hard man Vinnie Jones. Well, to be fair, he's been slightly disappointing in that respect. I don't think he has been the hard man Vinnie Jones. And I don't mean that in any sense of going out and and performing outside the laws of the game. He's only been booked twice, and his contribution has been probably a contribution that no one suspected when I signed him. And I knew that the eyebrows would be raised, and I knew that people would start to make allusions and references to the so-called Leeds of old. But in my mind, I knew what I wanted, and I knew he was capable of doing it. I saw different things in Jones to the things people felt weren't there. After all, you know, he had played in a Wimbledon team that had finished 5th in the First Division, that had won a cup final against Liverpool, and during the course of that, you know, managed to shove most of the others off the front or back page of the newspaper for one reason or another. Yeah, he has a personality. He's prepared to stand up for himself, and he's prepared to say what he thinks. But then there's nothing wrong with that. Gordon Strachan, yeah. Well, he was the watershed as far as my time here at Leeds United was concerned, because he was a statement of intent to the public as to what Leeds wanted for the future whilst I was manager. And it was, in its way, probably as significant a signing as was made last season anywhere up and down the Football League. Not only did we acquire a player of considerable ability and skill and talent, but we also acquired a player who was to be a model for people coming to this football club, for people who think they might come to the football club, as to how this football club wants its players to play, to behave, to live their lives, and just generally make it clear as to the sort of progress we are looking to make over the next few years. very, very important to us. The fact that we were competing with so-called bigger and better clubs and first division clubs at the time. And when you've said all that, you've then got to say that last season he never missed a football match. In fact, he hasn't missed one since he came. He probably scored more goals last season in a season than I can remember him scoring in the Football League or the Scottish League. And he was such an influence on the team that frequently opponents took special measures before the game to deal with him. He's been at my side or just behind me in really everything we've tried to do here, and hopefully that will be the case for a long time to come. David Batty was probably as influential a player as we had at the start of the season. For me, his first 3 months of the season were tremendous. He played well beyond any expectations and played well beyond any level that you were entitled to expect from a kid his age. He set the whole tempo of the game for us in those early games. And if anything, he's got to look towards those as his model. I thought he didn't quite reproduce that form after Christmas, but then this is a problem or a pattern that you sometimes get with youngsters. But undoubtedly his energy, his ability to get around the pitch, the way he closed people down, his tackling, his distribution. I remember the cross for the goal at Bradford. I remember the pass at Middlesbrough for Carl Schutt's goal were of extremely high quality. And if he can bring this consistency over the season to his performances, and then on top of that produce the goals. I mean, there's no reason at all why he shouldn't score goals, because he has a great strike and he's two-footed. But he's got to develop an attitude whereby he realises that scoring goals is important. But all in all, he can be well satisfied with the season he's had, bearing in mind the company in which he's played. Midfield player with a good touch, got forward well, scored goals from midfield. Probably I saw him at the time as being a good foil for David Batty, and he came in and did a terrific job for us on the right hand side, up and down the right hand side, which he's capable of doing. He's got neat and tidy feet. He understands the game, he can get up and down, he can deal with the ball. Gary Speed, from my point of view, had a what can be described as a difficult birth. You know, I've been trying to pull him out for probably 12 months. He's got a terrific touch for someone so big. He's a big lad, really. Terrific left foot. He can pass, he can control. He's surprisingly good in the air. As good in the air probably as anyone in the division. Honest, good athlete. Watching him sometimes for me was like watching a flower, and you're hoping it will open. It's painful watching it. I just hope now and believe that if he can get a summer on his back and look back on his emergence towards the end of the season, that he can start the campaign next season, the First Division campaign, a much more accomplished performer in terms of his personality and his the feeling that he's got to develop in himself, that he's out there by right and has a right to be out there, and that really he's out there to try to make everybody sit up and notice him. He's got to, because he's capable of making an impression. Some players are effective and you don't see them, but at the end of the game you know they've played. He has, when you look at him and look at all his qualities, he has the ability to make people go home from matches saying, you know, the number 11 today was a good player, or did you see that, or you know, comes in well at the back stick, or what a good shot. Yeah, there's a lot more in Gary.
So is there going to be a scrap of comfort for Sheffield yet? No, Kamara robs his man and lays the ball forward against Speed, charges onto it, and he could go all the way himself here, Gary Speed. Can he make it 4? He can! Super strike by Gary Speed.
Chris Kamara is an example, I think, of what can happen to you if you keep yourself in the race. You know, people sometimes give in too soon, they drop out too soon, they pack it in, they resign themselves to the situation in which they find themselves. Chris Kamara, I would think, is as fit, in fact fitter now than when he was 22. He's probably stronger now, and he's probably a better player now. You know, the journey through life sometimes can be a long and tedious and difficult one, and it's a while before you find yourself in a nice sunny spot. Now, I think that Chris is perhaps a little bit like Tony Buck at a similar stage of his career at Man City. I see Chris doing things in the last 12 months, 18 months that I would never have associated with him. I think he's become a student of the game now. I think he's come to recognise that the game has more to offer him, and he has more to offer the game than perhaps he thought in the past, and that he can make a serious contribution. He's got terrific engines. He can cover more of the park than perhaps anybody around at the moment. He can get forward very, very well. You know, all in all, he has, sounds strange for someone over 30, he's got a big future ahead of him if he really believes that future's there for him to take. We'd been badly hit by injuries again. Carl Shutt was injured, Bobby was injured, Big John Pearson wasn't compatible with Chappie as the sort of player we've discussed, and Raymond was virtually my first buy at Sheffield Wednesday, and I bought him purely and simply, if you look at the records, he gets a goal every 2 games, and with about a quarter of the season left, maybe a bit more, I wanted to try and ensure that we had enough goals, and with the 2 people I've just mentioned injured, that was going to be difficult, and Raymond was available at the right price at that time, and you can't buy promotion. People talk about spending money. Spending money doesn't guarantee you anything. There are lots of teams up and down this land who spent a lot of money last season. I was surprised talking to someone at a second division club, and over the last two and a half years they spent about £3.5 million, and last season spent most of the season trying to stay up. It's not spending money is not important, it's what you do when you've spent it, how they play, and Raymond for 50,000 was probably just as important acquisition as players who were bought for 650 earlier in the season. He had a bad time when he came in the team, goal scoring wise, Raymond, which was unusual for him, because he tried so hard to ensure that his contribution to the team was more than necessary. Did an awful lot of hard work. His first game was perhaps one of the best games I've seen him play down here, and the goal reward really was nothing like he's used to, and I think he showed how he's matured and grown up over the last 3 or 4 years, insofar he didn't let it affect his performances as it might have done in the past. John was, to me, a very exciting and very valuable player for a team during his Matford days. He could play up there, he got pace, he could take people on. You know, one of the things you can't deal with is the player who gets the ball and runs at you. A player who gets the ball, runs at you, the only way you can stop them is by fouling them. He was unpredictable. He made things happen. He had this quality of surprising you. And during the time I was watching him there at Bradford, I thought that you know, he had the makings of a very, very good player, given the right sort of surroundings and the right sort of development. Again, last season here, he had a season which was very much highlighted by the number of injuries he had, starting with the one which he got against Swindon, which at first might have been a broken leg, then it's a cut, and then the cut develops to septicemia, and so we go on, and really we haven't seen him injury free since then. John's got a terrific touch for one so big. You would be surprised by his ability to deal with the ball. If the ball's played into him, it's not going to come off him and be given away. In addition to which, again, whilst wanting desperately to play every week, and feeling terribly disappointed every week when he wasn't playing. John's the sort of person who can hide all that because he sees that in the short term it's the interests of the team that matter over and above his personal interests. Obviously in the long term that can't be the case because the two just don't go together in that way. But every successful team needs a successful squad behind it. And for squads to be successful, not only do they have to be big enough, and not only do they have to be good enough, but the squad has to have the right feeling in it, it has to have the right people in it. You've got to have fair-minded people who recognise that their wishes, their personal situation, can't always be the one that's at the forefront of the manager's mind. And John's one of those people, and very, very respected for it within the dressing room and within football. Shutty will score goals. There's no way you can stop him score goals. I think he scored goals at any level. He has a problem, or had a problem at this level, maintaining his consistency in that department. But he can score them, and sometimes they're not always the sort of goals you associate with strikers. I mean, he's got a terrific shot. He can let it go from 20-25 yards, but he'll always score goals, and invaluable. Probably one of the most important away wins last season was our victory at Middlesbrough, when in a very short space of time we lost our strike force, and on the Saturday morning I brought John and Carl Shutt into the team, and between them they won us the game. They're the best two players on the pitch that day. Bobby, like Chappie, scores goals. He had a problem here, but then so have a lot of other strikers in the last 8 years. When I came, I think he started to pick up and started to score goals again. He's quick, he's bright, and after that, it's the same qualities again. He gets a lot of strikes in, he gets a fair proportion on target. He's prepared to be in that area where there's bodies and boots and studs flying around. He's prepared to get hurt. And so he'll score goals. And when he was injured, he was well on his way to as good a total as he's had for a long time. He was on to 1 goal every 2 games. And unfortunately, the injury put paid to his season virtually. But we missed him. And when you look at him and you look at the qualities he's got, you can see why. The other thing about Bob is that he does play for 90 minutes. He's a fit lad. He enjoys running, and when he's in your side, not only does he score for it, but occasionally he does things which contribute greatly towards the overall team performance. Bob knocks them in from 2 yards, 3 yards, but as you say, because of his pace, which will take him beyond and behind defenders, he can score some spectacular goals. I mean, the goal against Swindon down here, when he went by the centre half and whacked it in from around 12 yards, near post, top corner. You say the goalkeeper should have had it, but the pace on it at that stage. The goal down here against Middlesbrough, when he knocked it past Mowbray and outran Mowbray. For a small fella, he's surprising in the air. A very, very underrated goal against Sunderland this year, which must be from 15, 18 yards off a free kick. Tremendous header. When I first came here, I was very, very pleasantly surprised by Imbird, because up until then I'd not really been aware of his abilities. But he probably more than anybody struck me when I came, because he could do so many things and do them well. On top of which, he was a wholehearted, enthusiastic, 100% performer. It was, with Ian, it was purely and simply a fact of he didn't score enough goals for the position he occupied. And particularly when we lost Bobby Davison, and it looked as though Bobby was going to be out for some time, it became apparent to me that we were going to struggle to win games because we weren't going to score goals. And that's when I had to go out and buy Chappie, or I thought I needed to put us right in that department again. But Ian, I think, and scoring goals would also help him. I think it would add to his confidence, because undoubtedly he has got a lot of ability. He's got a good touch. He can receive balls. He's not scared. He's got good engines. Gets about the park. But sometimes, when you're playing in his position, you need those injections. That you know, you need the drug that only goals can give you. And sometimes he goes too long without a fix. He scores goals. He knows that his job requires that to be, and he won't settle for less. On top of that, he can play at a level beyond, or far beyond, which a lot of people give him credit for. He's very single-minded, not easily distracted, and he's now had a lot of experience, in addition to which his career's not always been one long string of successes. He's known what it's like to struggle and to fight his way through that struggle. And I knew that he would come here and slot in quickly and be well able to cope with the pressure that was going to build up as the season developed. The thing about strikers is that they've got to get strikes. I mean, that's a stupid statement, but they've got to get a lot of strikes. You know, you won't score goals if you're having 2 shots a game or 1 shot a game. So you've got to be in and around that area, which is sort of 10, 12 yards from goal. You've got to be in and around there frequently. You've not got to be afraid of being hurt. And you've got to be prepared to miss. Now, to score, you've got to get a certain number of those strikes on target. He gets strikes, and he gets a fair proportion on target. And he can deal with the ball wherever it comes. Head, left foot, right foot, knee if necessary. And he can, you know, he'll get them on target ugly rather than over the bar but pretty. I slept a lot easier at night once he'd arrived, because I knew I could rely on him for the goals. my job, unfortunately, has so many demands on it that I very often find I can't do the things as much as I would like that I like doing, and I can't do the things that I do well as often as I'd like to do them. Michael generally is around me tidying up the mess, trying to make life as comfortable for me in the situation as is possible, and doing it all without being asked or ordered. He just wants for the club and the team and for me to be successful, and he's prepared to do anything to bring that about. He's in love with football. You don't have to tell him where to go. If he's not sent somewhere to do something, he'll go somewhere on his own. He'll find a game, or he'll go look for a player. Totally dedicated to the job. You couldn't find better anywhere.
How closely do the two of you think alike?
On most things, probably as close as you can get. I think basically our values for football and our thoughts on football and of football are very, very, very much in line. Very much in line. And on life, really.
You spend a lot of money and put your judgment on the line by recruiting John Lukic to the club. Why did you feel you needed another goalkeeper?
Well, we went through last season with just one experienced goalkeeper, which is taking a tremendous risk. You risk injury, and when you risk injury, you risk losing football matches if you haven't got adequate cover. So we needed another goalkeeper who could come in and play Football League matches. When you go for replacements, or you go for increasing and improving your squad, you've got to go for the best available if you can. And John Lukic was the best available, so we went for him and we got him. We were very lucky there. It's been my experience that as you move up in football and you move through football, what happens is that some people actually grow into the new situation and improve with it. Some people will become better players next season through playing in the first division. Unfortunately, some don't. You find that some have reached the limit of their performances, and that the first division actually seems to make them look worse players. Consequently, because of that, in anticipation of that, you have to try to strengthen your squad. In addition to which, the first division does put extra demands on you. It does require a higher level of consistency, and you know that you have to keep striving to improve. And I would think by the beginning of this season, if I was very lucky in getting what I thought was necessary, we might possibly see 3 more players coming into the football club. Basically, I feel the people who did the job for us last year are good enough to do the job next year, and they will do that job, and they will be given the chance to do that job. But at the same time, in anticipation of the fact that some will find it very testing, in anticipation of the fact that once the impetus of being promoted has started to dwindle, you need people who are coming into a fresh, challenging situation. We have to try to make sure that we can deal with those demands. You stand still in football, you go backwards. You go backwards long enough, you fall off that cliff.
The winning of the second division title is now history. The immediate target, consolidation in the top flight and a bold bid for English soccer's premier prize, the First Division Championship. To achieve these aims, the manager has turned once more to the transfer market. The influx of new talent is already underway, with the arrival of 3 highly rated and costly individuals. John Lukic returns to the club where he began as an apprentice. Only now, he's a £1 million goalkeeper. Gary McAllister rejected a move into Europe to join United. His value is around the £1 million mark. A midfield player of exceptional ability, with an eye for a goal. Chris White reached early heights with Arsenal, then moved to America when his career was threatened by injury. But he's now firmly re-established in the English game. His experience will be vital in defence. The New Look United are ready for the big challenge. The First Division mountain is about to be climbed and conquered.
Race for the Title, the glory of Leeds United's promotion season on video. Available from good stockists or direct from Video Sales YTV Leeds. Price £9.99 plus £1 postage and packing.